All right, so welcome back. Now let's talk about French President Macron's visit to Nigeria. And as a matter of fact, the Center of Excellence,
Lagos.
Yes, France has pledged to strengthen bilateral relations with Nigeria in order to tackle the advance of terrorism in Sahel region, stabilizing the region for economic development.
Yes, indeed. And this resolve came out of discussions on Tuesday evening when Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari played host to the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, at the presidential villa, Abuja.
And our correspondent, Taya Modu, tells us more.
The French president arrives at the presidential villa, Abuja, to a warm welcome by President Muhammadu Buhari. It is not the first meeting between both presidents in the course of the week, having interacted on the sidelines of the recently concluded AU summit in Mauritania. In the course of the meeting, which lasted roughly 2 hours, both presidents were on the same page about the urgent need to roll back the advance of terrorism in the Sahel region. The French president rolls out an ambitious plan for French involvement, which not only involves security but stabilization of the region and economic development, which is why he says both countries are signing a $75 million credit facility agreement to improve water supply in Kano.
What's important to me is how the African governments in different African countries organize themselves to fight against terrorism and get rid of these people, and especially jihadism. That's why I do accompany and I do promote the G5 Sahel initiative. And I think the forces organized and where Nigeria is a cornerstone player with Niger, Chad and Cameroon is very important with Boko Haram. I think first we have to increase the pressure. Yesterday with our friends from G5 Sahel, we worked very hard on the different operations to come. And I think we have to increase the pressure on the operations against this jihadist. We can fix the situation in the coming months. And obviously France will remain present in Sahel as long as they want it.
The president expresses the thanks of a grateful nation for French intervention in security in the Sahel, but also seeks support for the water transfer project to the Lake Chad.
For Nigeria, what I personally emphasize is the inter-basin transfer of Lake Chad and the Sahel security. What France is doing, we all know, in trying to stabilize the region, especially in dealing with G5.
Another port of call for President Macron in his visit to Nigeria is the African Shrine in Lagos, which he describes as an iconic place and just the right place to anchor his dream of an African cultural project.
We want to do more in economy. Your economy is so important and it's huge. We have a lot of French companies present on the ground in building mats, real estate, obviously oil and gas, transportation and infrastructures and so on. But I want France to be much more present for small and medium enterprises and in different sectors like digital. We launched Digital Africa, which is now a great initiative allowing entrepreneurship to accelerate, to develop themselves because it provides new opportunities to young people, and that's the best way as well to provide jobs, obviously, and an actual growth, inclusive growth for our people.
Both countries also signed a letter of intent for a loan to finance the urban mobility program initiated by the Lagos state government. The loan being facilitated by the AFD, the France Development Agency, is valued at $200 million. Taya Modu, TVC News.
All right, thanks for joining us. Of course, we're being joined now by social affairs or public affairs commentator and presidential aspirant Victor Hai. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
All right. Of course, today will not be the day to talk about your presidential aspirations, yeah. But let's focus on Macron's visit. How mutually beneficial, really, would you say that this visit is likely to be? Of course, we will need to give it time to be able to assess. But from what you have seen so far and from the kind of passion that emanate from Macron. How do you think this will pan out?
Well, the key word is, you know, when you say mutually beneficial, obviously it's going to be. The truth is, and like Macron rightly said when he spoke there, that there are lots of French interests here. So it is really in the interest of the French government that there be peace in Nigeria, for instance. And for us, also, peace is very important within the country. And we need France because of the influence that it has, you know, on our neighbors, where, I mean, all of our neighbors are obviously
Francophone.
Francophone. So there is a need, you know, to have that French influence over them so that there's proper cooperation and collaboration in this fight against what he called the jihadists, you know. So I think it is a mutually beneficial one. The peace in the country ensures the sustainability of French business in this country, obviously, and the peace is also in our
interest.
Yes, in our interest as well.
All right. The French president did say to President Muhammadu Buhari during the press conference that, look, as much as we want to be of help to Africa and Nigeria, remember that France can't fix your problems. The plan has to be a domestic one. Yeah. In terms of fighting terrorism, in terms of helping your economy to grow. Do we have these plans, the right plans, to you know, solve these problems?
Okay, first of all, whether we have the right plans or not is for us to see. You know, obviously, the way things are going, it doesn't appear yet that whatever plans we have are that effective. Otherwise, we won't be begging the French to come and help us solve our internal problems. What Macron did there was speaking truth to power. Yes. I mean, that's a home truth. You're not going to be telling a man to come and help you solve your own domestic problems in your home. And so what he's simply done is asked us to look inwards. Because the truth is, this is where our problem is. Yeah. It's an internal problem. I mean, other countries, we're talking about refugees in other countries. Well, here we're having internally displaced persons, you know, in this age and time. And with the amount, I mean, the number of people that are killed on a daily basis, obviously we have to look inwards and do what we need to do. And what he simply told us is the truth. Okay, yes, we know we need to do what we need to do. Yes. How exactly can we take advantage of the gains of President Macron's visit? Because you almost think, oh, this really should be a signal to other world leaders that in spite of the, you know, what's been going on in Nigeria, the Plateau killings, Benue, Boko Haram in the northeast and all of that, that Nigeria may not be that terrible after all to visit. Because you know what? He'd not only visited the president in his Aso Rock villa, a very protected fortress, but he was able to feel free enough to come to Lagos and visit the shrine. No, but truth is that Nigeria is not at war. Yes. Okay? What you have is, Aso Rock is not obviously the best of examples to give you. A president can visit, and any visiting president obviously would have all the security. So that's my point, yes. Yeah, but the visit to Lagos is good. If anyone should understand Lagos, Macron would, because he was here, after all. Even, I mean, not just now. Yes, when it was worse. In the embassy. Yes, when Lagos then was, I mean, Lagos then had a reputation. Lagos is today, everyone knows that Lagos is a safe place. You can move at any time. But it was here when it was even worse. You understand? And he understood that what you read about in the papers and on the internet are not necessarily true. So he understands it. But what is important to me from that visit and what I saw there, which is very instructive, is never forget where you're coming from. I mean, this was a man who visited the shrine, you know. I mean, this was like a pastime for him. And for a lot of people who visit, who live in this country, you know, the expats, the expatriates and all of that. Yeah. Yes. And so he came And then he went to visit. I listened to something, what do you call it, him now, Femi said. For him, it was like, this is a validation. He was almost at the point of tears. Yeah. You know, when your own country will not recognize you, when you're doing something, you're working so hard as a young person to achieve something in this country, and you're constantly
hounded. Which will project the positive image of your country.
Exactly. And you're constantly hounded and labeled as being a no good and all of that. He was at the point of tears. I listened to Yeni, I listened to Femi, and I could just hear the voice of many young people who are saying, you know, who are like talking and feeling, you know, it's like, finally, here is a leader. And I use that word advisedly, because as someone that recognizes, looks beyond what people are saying, sees talent and sees effort and sees hard work.
All right, Victor, I'm looking at it from a different perspective.
Not a problem.
Kufuor, the Ghanaian president, of course, he was right in front of the French president as well when he had a meeting with him, when he said, look, I'm looking to build a Ghana that is independent of foreign aids. Shouldn't this be the path that African leaders should be towing?
Yeah, I agree absolutely, completely. We have the resources, and Nigeria of today has the human capital necessary to transform these resources.
Every kind of capital.
Yes, exactly. What we lack is leadership. Simple.
And that is reminiscent of what Chinua Achebe said in 1980, that the problem of Africa is squarely and simply the problem of leadership.
No, but that's the truth. Because it takes a leader to transform, to use these resources, you know, to be able to benefit the people. I mean, if you don't have a good leader in place, put the best of resources, it's just going to be squandered. It'll be another round of squandermania, which is exactly what is going on. You know, I'll give you a small example. I'm not trying to be political here, but if you're recovering stolen funds, and then you are thinking about, I will use a word here, and I want to say so. You are trying to campaign with it to bribe poor people to get votes, instead of you putting it in places where you can. I mean, if you fix roads, then, for instance, farmers can move their goods to inner city. If you use that money to fix railway, goods will move faster, you know, so we won't have goods perishing in the hinterland.
And we will not have fuel tankers upturning on the road.
So why would you be thinking, for instance, about bribing ordinary people with the looted funds, instead of putting this money in places where it will be used, where it will be productive, where it will benefit generations yet to come?
Well, little wonder controversy has trailed the
that particular,
exactly.
But let's even look at a very profound statement that Macron made during his visit, that if Africa does not make it, the chances are that Europe will not even progress. What he's saying, in essence, is there is an umbilical cord between Africa and Europe that African leaders, unfortunately, don't seem to have a grasp of. But let's even leave that aside. He's called the youth. He has addressed them and said, you have to get involved in politics, in the whole process of governance. Are the Nigerian youth ready to take him up?
They're ready. I'll tell you this. First of all, let me address the issue you said we should put aside, which is the issue of the relationship, or the relationship between Africa's progress and Europe's progress. Truth is, go back to the time even of slavery. The resources that built Europe, that built America, you know, and all of that, both from Africa and material are from Africa. The resources from our earth, the human capital or human resources, literally built the United States of America, built Europe. These are the resources that built them, and it still remains till tomorrow. There are facts, Nestle, and Switzerland doesn't produce cocoa. Okay, all the cocoa comes from West Africa, literally. You understand what I'm saying? So if there's a problem here, obviously, I mean, oil from this part, fuel industry in Europe. Now, to come down to the issue of the young people.
Yes, sorry, before you come down to the issue, you talk about it, but let me ask, do you think that they still need Africa? If they still, they do. If many of them still need Africa at this point, President Trump will not be doing what he's doing at the moment, which is protectionism.
No, I don't see a problem with what he's doing. Truth is, I can tell you this, if the if the human capital we have in the US were to come back to this country, you know, the brains that we have, if they were to come back to this country, join political parties and politics, Nigeria would transform. What is happening in Lagos State, for instance, is you find that there are a lot of, Lagos State is doing a lot of diaspora recruitment.
Yes.
You understand? A lot of the agencies that you see, they are headhunting the best and the brightest from the diaspora and bringing them to transform Lagos.
And
it's
reflecting. It's reflecting,
It's
right?
reflecting. You can see the results.
Yeah.
Now, what are we doing about getting these people in the diaspora? So if Trump does what he does, it's only going to be for our good. You know, if these people were to come back here, they'll come back with all of the money. They'll come back with all of that, you know, all that, you know.
The knowledge gained.
The knowledge that they have acquired.
Yeah.
They'll come back with all of the exposure that they have. And under the right political atmosphere, obviously we're going to be a lot better than we are right now.
And still talking about the youth participation.
Yes.
Will the youth be the ones to actually create that,
exactly.
right
I'll
environment?
say this to you. We need the audacity of belief. There's no better example than Macron. 15 years ago,
he was here in Nigeria
as a starry-eyed 23, 24-year-old. He was in this country as an intern.
Yeah.
He went back, within 15 years, he had become the Minister of Finance in his country and has since become the president, the youngest president of France.
Yeah.
Think about that.
And in 1977, when President Buhari was minister or so,
he was in primary school.
That's when he was born.
Oh my! You have to go there.
That's the truth.
Yes.
And then, I mean, how many years down the line? Almost 41 years down the line, or 40 years down the line.
He's a world leader.
A president, someone who was, what do you call him now? A Minister of Petroleum at that time.
Yes.
A child who was just born then was receiving him as
president.
I mean, it's laughable.
Let's even talk about the strategy that a country like France puts in place. Alliance Française, for example, was one of the unveilings that he did yesterday. Alliance Française, which propagates French culture.
That's the way it's called, Alliance Française.
Alliance Française.
No, there's no R in it.
Alliance Française.
Alliance Française.
Alliance Française. Okay.
We're about to learn French now. You find branches in Jos, in Owerri.
Yes.
Most every part of the country, of Nigeria.
True.
Does that speak to the strategy, to the deliberateness to propagate French culture? And when we talk about French culture, it's not the dance, it's not, it's all encompassing.
I know that.
So there's a deliberate attempt by the French government, by the British government, for example, by every other government, as it were, to push what they stand for. We don't seem to have that kind of strategy in place.
Okay, two things I'll say to you here.
Yeah.
First of all, when you're exposed to a person's culture and language, there's a sense of kinship that goes with it. You understand the people more.
Yes.
The second thing I want to talk about is, have you listened or watched on YouTube or on the internet any of these white people who speak Pidgin English? Yoruba language, Igbo language, and all of that. I'm sure you've seen them.
Oh, yes.
How do you feel when you hear them?
It's always a delight.
And the woman who was a priest in Oshun, the white woman who was a priest.
Susan Venga.
Yes.
Now, when you think about this, what it simply does is when you expose to a person's culture and language. Okay, the best example to give you is, the core North today has lost its culture completely. Its culture is Islamic. It's not local, it's not indigenous. There is no Hausa culture anymore. There's no Fulani culture anymore. What you have is an Islamic culture, for instance. Now, what happens is, and that's the power of culture. Look at America, just watching American movies, listening to American music, you know, and all of that. What it does to our young people, it just changes our mindset. And so the French, more than anyone else, understand the power of culture, which is why they promote culture everywhere. Not just their own, even the local culture. Because they know that the moment, as soon as you lose that, you lose everything. You know? And so their way of reaching out and bridging, you know, with various countries is through introducing the language and culture to the people. Because when you understand that, then you understand the people. Then you can relate to the people.
And that is what the Chinese are doing at the moment as well.
Establishing cultural imperialism.
Yeah,
that's what it is. That's
without necessarily using force.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
But again,
no.
Victor, we have no time anymore.
Yeah.
But I want to take you back to issue of young people coming into leadership.
That will be taking me forward.
Yeah. If you say so.
Forward, yes.
Yeah, I mean in the sense that we have talked about it, but I'm taking you back to it. Right. Macron certainly was involved in politics. Yes. He was a finance minister until he became a president.
It was a process.
Yes. So, according to Plato, he said that leadership is deliberate and not by happenstance, which means that it's a trajectory, it's a process. The young people of the now, are they
ready to go through the process?
Yeah.
Well, here's what I'll say. I'll speak for myself. I'm ready. I'm available. You just need the audacity of belief. Let no one tell you that is not possible. Let no one tell you that you're incapable rather. Let no one tell you that, you know, you're the leader of tomorrow, or that you don't have what it takes. All you need is the audacity of belief. If you don't move, nothing happens. Remember this, it is only the girl who participates in the beauty contest that can emerge winner. It doesn't matter whether you say she's ugly or whatever. The crown can only be for the available.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying? For the people in the ring. And so I say to every young person, get into the ring. It's the only way to get power. Unless you're in there, it's not going to happen. These old people are not going to give it to you. They're preparing their children. The only young people who might get it will be their children who will succeed them.
Victor Ohai, public affairs analyst, also a presidential aspirant. We thank you very much indeed for coming to give us a thought.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you so very much.
And you know, yes, we're about to wrap up, but did you notice that excitement when Macron met that 11-year-old Karim?
Oh,
It was actually TVC that showcased that young man.
I saw that.
Yes,
I saw the story you did when you went to his house.
Exactly.
I saw
By
that. We need to throw up a lot of our young people. He was amazed that happened.
Awesome.
You saw him whispering into the boys' ears and all of that. He couldn't believe. This is what is in every young man in this country. We've got potentials. Now we've got to move it beyond potentials to actual
reality.
Actualism.
Thank you so much, Victor Ohai, for joining us this morning and wrapping it this way on TVC Breakfast.